So if we press T to bring up our tool shelf here, and under our shape tools, in the last video we discussed these shape tools, and these allow us to do things like cut out, combine, and intersect our objects. For instance, if I were to add this sphere object here, and I were to press cut out, it would cut itself out of whatever object it happened to be closest to. Then we could press apply, and if we press tab to go into edit mode, we see this as one object now. But today we're going to be talking about meta shape tools. And if you'll notice down here, it says regular. This is because we're in the regular mesh shape tools. But if we press this button here, this will switch to say meta. And we'll see we have a different selection of shapes down here as well. So these tools work pretty similarly to the regular shape tools, except you'll notice our options are a little different here. We can still cut out and combine, but instead of intersect, we only have the invert option. The meta shape tools take advantage of Blender's meta ball system, which is really cool. So for instance, if we add this meta cube here, in the same way that we can duplicate regular objects and carry over their effects when we're using shape tools, we can do the same with this. So if I were to press D to duplicate this cube, the big difference here is that the structure of the meta ball objects are in constant communication with each other. And what I mean by that is every object we add or take away from this meta ball shape, basically all of the geometry composing it gets adjusted to make it work better, if that makes any sense. So if I were to add this cylinder here, I could press grab, move it around. I could press cut out, much in the same way that we can cut out using regular shape tools. And I'm going to go ahead and select this mesh cube here and press X to delete it so it's not getting in our way. And so I could move this around, do something like this. In the same way we can tap W to increase smoothing. With our regular objects, we can do that while using these meta shape tools. So if I tap W, notice that increases the resolution of these. And also we can just control that value with the slider by making it lower and higher. 0.2 is a bit small. I recommend dropping this down to 0.2 when you're ready to apply. But if we're going to be making anything very complex, then it might start slowing down. So if I were to add a sphere here, I can move this around. So if I were to add a plane here, press S to scale this. I could press cut out, and this cuts out everything here. Of course, I could rotate these things and what have you. And we could press D to duplicate this like this, and real quickly start making some crazy stuff. When we're ready to finish this, we can convert it all to mesh and press apply. And so now this has become a mesh object, but much in the same way that using shape tools for regular objects, can give you some crazy mesh, doubly so does this go for meta shape tools. So if we press tab to go into edit mode, we have an incredibly complex mesh. And something like this wouldn't be good for painting because the UV map generated from all these tiny faces would be insane and not look good. So you would want to engage in retopologizing this object or in some other method to get the mesh count down and to clean it up. But that's a little bit beyond the scope of this video. So my hope is that one day in the future, having to clean up mesh and retopologize mesh is a thing of the past. So it would be nice if the computer could just figure out how to take a really complex shape like this and make it simple and work really good for things like animating, painting, and things like that, and in an efficient way. But until such time as that, we're going to have to deal with cleaning up mesh or retopologizing, which basically means recreating the object on top of the messy object to make a clean, good one. Kind of similar to the way a comic book is produced. So you have your first draft artist come in there and he's going to sketch out stuff. Then you may, after that, have the inker come in and ink, but oftentimes there's usually a cleanup crew even before things get inked. So there's multiple layers of creating stuff. And the important thing to recognize with these shape tools is that they're an awesome creative tool. They're an awesome tool for kind of just getting that rough pencil to the paper and making things look really awesome. So for the same reason you have an inker and a sketcher, that's currently in the 3D world, you want to be able to really loosey-goosey create stuff that looks cool and then go back in and clean it up and make sure it works on the technical side of things for animation and getting serious with painting and materials and stuff. So now that we have a basic idea of how these meta shape tools work, let's make some kind of spaceship cruiser thing. So I'm going to press tab to go into object mode, press X to delete that big old thing. And I'm going to go ahead and switch this over to Meta Tools again. And I'm going to go ahead and press my full screen button so we've got some more screen real estate to work with. And let's add a sphere. So what I'm going to do is press S to scale and middle mouse to constrain and kind of make this like a flat M&M looking shape here. And I'll add a cylinder. And also my resolution is really high, which is great for when you're ready to apply and create a really smooth mesh, but not so great while you're working. So let's bump that up to about 0.05. And this makes it a little easy to work with. So I'll press 3 to go into right view and then R to rotate this cylinder, hold Control to constrain, and just kind of grab this over here, maybe scale this out some, scale this down. And you can see what I was talking about when I said that the difference between these meta objects is that communication is happening across the entire thing, basically to make sure that all the geometry merges into everything else. So it's an incredibly powerful conceptual tool, as I was mentioning before. So I'll press D to duplicate this cylinder here, S to scale, maybe make something like this, maybe some kind of weird engine turbine or something. Press D to duplicate that. Let's press cut out there and S to scale that down. And let's see, let's press 1 to go into front view and scale that down a bit. I think I'm going to need a little bit more resolution because it's getting kind of hard to see what's going on here. Maybe bump this down to 0.04. S to scale that out a bit. And another thing about these meta objects is you can't really select them by their kind of whole object thing. You have to select them by the little shape that represents them. So if I want to move this bit of it down, I'll grab this bit and that bit and press G to grab, middle mouse to constrain. Maybe I want to drop that down a bit and scale that because that looks a little bit weird. And something like that. Maybe duplicate this again, S to scale, bring that up. Maybe duplicate that, right click to cancel the movement part, S to scale. And we'll go ahead and cut out of that. That's kind of cool. Yeah, so many things you didn't, really even expect to find can happen while you're working with these tools, which is really fun. So I'll press D to duplicate that again because I like that kind of double shape there. And then S to scale this new duplication, which I'll use to put a hole in that. And press 1 to go in front view and try to even this up a bit. Maybe just scale down this whole little operation here. And maybe move it around to the side. Okay, so I'm going to take all this stuff on this side here, and I'm going to press D to duplicate it. Then I'm going to press one of these mirror buttons. I'm not sure which one I need. Turns out it's X. But if it wasn't X, you could just, fiddle with these pressing one until it does what you want it to do. So that's what I wanted it to do. So we've got this on both sides. I'm going to press D to duplicate that one out, something like that. And you know what? I'll press X to delete that. Rather than do that, I think I will add a sphere. And look how moving this sphere through this thing adjusts all this stuff. It's really crazy. So let's move it back down here. S to scale. I don't know much at all about physics and astronomy and stuff. I'm wondering if working with tools like this would be a cool way to conceptualize, like, I don't know, different math theories and stuff, like a visual way to look at it. So I'll press cut out here, S to scale this. And switch 1 to go into front view, which really this is the back of the ship. So I think I'm going to spin all this stuff around. And you'll notice that the quality gets a little bit crappier as you're moving stuff. And then when you click to confirm, it gets a bit higher. That's a setting that we have set up for this. And I'll go ahead and duplicate that and then middle mouse to constrain to drag it over. And let's build some sort of cockpit pit thing. I'll press D to duplicate, bring that up, middle mouse to constrain. Let's press cut out on that, G to grab, S to scale. Something like this. And maybe duplicate this cylinder here, S to scale that down. Maybe duplicate it again, S to scale that. Bring that up a bit bigger. It's kind of a weird cockpit thing here. I'm going to duplicate that again, that sphere there, and press S to scale that, G to grab, S to scale. Move it in like this. And let's bring this down a little bit in size. Maybe press D to duplicate it, G to grab. Maybe it's some kind of like gun turret or something on there. Press S to scale. We'll make 2 of them. So I'll press 2 to go into back view and duplicate this so it's like coming out like that. And press W a few times to see what this looks like a bit smoother. Of course, with this object being this complicated, it's gonna start slowing things down if we're trying to move any of these pieces. So bring that back up to 0.04. And I think these should be moved away from each other just a little bit. And I'll go ahead and duplicate these 2 and turn them to cutout and set this to individual origins, which should scale those individually. And we're going to have to increase the resolution of this to be able to see that better. That works. Although I think I'll move this whole bit back a bit. G to grab, middle mouse to constrain, pull it under there to where that's all connected. Okay, so I think that about does it for a basic demonstration of these meta shape tools. We've got a pretty cool looking beginnings of a pretty cool little flyer thing here. Let's go ahead and bump this resolution up to 0.01. It's got an automatic safeguard on it, stopping you from if you manually drag it down beyond 0.2. But of course, with most values in Blender, if you actually click on it and manually enter something in, you can usually get those values a little lower or higher. So I'm going to make it really high by dropping this down to 0.1. Of course, as soon as I do, it starts stalling out because this is now becoming an insanely complicated mesh here. However, the detail is going to look super sweet. So I do like that. I'm going to press apply here to convert this to a mesh. And there we go. So we've got this really cool looking speeder thing all ready to go. Pretty sweet. So if we press tab to go into edit mode, it's taking a second because this is a nightmare under here. We have an insanely complex mesh. If we were going to paint this or something like that, we would need to first retopologize or clean up this mesh in some way. I'll press tab to go out of edit mode there. So that about wraps it up. Hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you have fun messing around with these meta shape tools and get your creative juices flowing and whatnot. So we'll see you next time.